The valet doesn't recognize you. He never does. You hand him the keys to a 9-year-old Honda with a cracked side mirror, and he barely looks up from his phone. Behind you, a man in a blazer hands his keys to the other valet, and everyone in line watches the car, not the man. Nobody watches you. That's the point. That has always been the point. You are 41 years old. Your net worth, as of this morning, when your accountant sent the quarterly update at 7:14 a.m., is $46.2 million. You are wearing a shirt you bought at a big box store for $14. Nobody in this parking lot would guess you could buy the restaurant they're about to eat in. You didn't start out choosing to be invisible. You started out just being poor, and the invisibility came later, and by the time you noticed it had become a personality, it was already load-bearing. Your father ran a small appliance repair shop out of a strip mall in Toledo. Fridges, washers, the occasional dishwasher nobody else wanted to touch. He wore the same navy jacket with his name stitched on it for 11 years. You remember the exact week it finally got replaced because your mother cried a little doing it. Not from sadness, just from the strange finality of throwing away something that had outlasted its own fabric. Money in your house wasn't discussed. It was rationed. Your mum kept a spiral notebook by the phone where she tracked which bills could wait 5 days and which couldn't wait 1. You learned to read that notebook before you learned long division. You were 13 the year the shop's landlord raised the rent $400 a month, and you watched your father do the math out loud at dinner, not because he wanted an audience, but because there was nowhere else to do it. You got good with numbers early, not in a classroom, in that notebook. By 15, you were doing your dad's invoices on a second-hand laptop because you were faster than he was, and neither of you said that part out loud. By 17, you'd built a scheduling spreadsheet that cut his no-show rate almost in half. Nobody called it a skill, it was just Tuesday. You went to a state school 2 hours from home, took out $22,000 in loans, and worked the front desk at a campus gym for $9.35 an hour. You noticed something in your sophomore year, a gap in how small manufacturers priced freight versus what freight actually cost. You didn't have a word for arbitrage yet. You just knew a number was wrong, and wrong numbers had always felt personal to you. At 23, with $4,100 in savings and a laptop held together with a rubber band, you built a tool that fixed that gap for 1 client, then 3, then 11. You worked out of your apartment for 4 years, ate the same $2 lunch so often you stopped tasting it, and told your parents you were doing consulting, which was true in the way that a lot of true things are also a way of not explaining yourself. At 29, you sold your first company for $3.8 million. You bought nothing, not a car, not a watch, not even a better apartment. You moved the number into an index fund and kept driving the Honda. And when people asked why, you gave them an answer about compound interest, which was true, but it wasn't the real reason. The real reason was that spending it felt like admitting it was real, and you weren't ready to admit that yet. At 34, the second company sold for $19 million. At 38, the third, the one nobody saw coming because you built it quietly on the side while running the second, closed at $31 million. You are 41 now. The numbers have gotten strange enough that you've stopped saying them out loud, even to yourself.
Here is the part nobody prepares you for. The money didn't change what you wear. It changed what you notice. You notice the man in the blazer glance at his own reflection in the restaurant window. You notice the way people soften around anyone who looks like money and go slightly flat around anyone who doesn't. You've spent your whole life on the flat side of that line, and now you're rich enough to cross it and you don't. And the not crossing has become its own quiet form of research. You're watching how the world treats a person it has decided doesn't matter. You are that person on paper, in the parking lot, in the shirt. You just also happen to be a person who could buy the parking lot. Your old friend Danny still thinks you're doing fine, not great. You never corrected him. Somewhere around year 2 of the first company, you realize that telling people the real number doesn't make them happy for you. Not fully, not for long. It changes the temperature of the room. People start doing arithmetic about your friendship without meaning to. So you let Danny think you're doing fine, not great, and you split the check at diners. And some nights that feels like honesty, and other nights it feels like a lie you've been telling so long it grew its own conscience. Your mother still keeps a version of that spiral notebook, not because she needs to, because 40 years of tracking which bill could wait doesn't leave a person just because the bills stop stopped mattering. You paid off the house in year 3 of the first company. You did it through a lawyer, anonymously, structured so it looked like an estate resolution. She still doesn't fully know it was you. You've almost told her 4 times. You stop yourself every time because you understand something most people don't get the chance to learn. The moment you say the real number out loud to someone who loves you, you're not their kid anymore. You're a figure they have to hold carefully, like something that might tip over. So you keep driving the Honda. You keep the $14 shirt, not as a bit, not as an aesthetic, not for a thumbnail. You keep it because somewhere in the last 2 decades, invisibility stopped being a leftover from poverty and became the last honest room in a life that otherwise runs entirely on other people's assumptions. The valet brings the man in the blazer his car first. It's a habit built on nothing but a jacket. You wait, unbothered, watching a stranger get treated like his net worth is written on his sleeve, while yours sits untouched and enormous 3 feet away in a bank you've never once mentioned at this restaurant. Your Honda pulls around. You tip the valet in cash, the same amount you always tip, and you drive home to a house that, from the street, looks exactly like the one next to it. Nobody on this street knows what you're actually worth. You've thought more than once about whether that's a kind of freedom or a kind of hiding, and most nights you still can't tell which one it is. Maybe it's both. Maybe it was always going to be both. You pull into the driveway. You sit in the car for a second before going in, the way you always do, and you think about the notebook by your mother's phone, the one that used to decide which bill waited 5 days. You wonder what she'd write in it now, if she knew. You wonder if you'll ever actually let her find out.